We have some interesting weather over the next 7 to 10 days, so we're going to break down all the details for you in this update, starting off with the satellite view. And it's been nothing but warm out there into the Pacific Northwest and much of the western regions with the dominating ridge of high pressure. We do have a stronger cold front that's building across the central U.S. That's going to be diving southbound and bringing some pleasant temperatures, actually even to the 40s in Montana as we head into Thursday. But further south, they've been dealing with one system after another, and another mesoscale convective vortex system formed overnight in Texas and brought more extensive flooding for them. And yet we could see another system even form again tonight, as well as into portions of the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. Then they're dealing with their own flooding as well. And then further south, we've got a disturbance off the Florida coast that's bringing some tropical rains, and now Invest 93L has formed. That's expected to cross over into the upper Gulf and possibly form into our next tropical storm, which would be named Dexter. So we got a lot to cover, but wow, look at all the water vapor. I mean, the precipitable water content values for this time of year has been exorbitantly high over the last couple of weeks. We've seen so many flood warnings, flood emergencies, a lot of rivers over its banks, just a very unusual setup over the last couple of weeks, but we're starting to see the kind of the tail end of it. We still have another day or two left of it, but I do feel things flip in a big way. But right now, we're still dealing with that abundance amount of heavy rainfall. And we do have an increase and an enhanced increase of a moderate risk down there where they definitely don't need it into the hill country and the far southern portions of Texas where they've seen extensive flooding, as well as portions of the mid-Atlantic and along the East Coast here. They have their own flood threat to deal with and the upgraded moderate risk. And then further south, the slight risk for excessive rainfall with that tropical wave, that Invest 93L. They're experiencing their own flooding as well with those heavier rain showers. But overall, as we head into tomorrow, you can see where the cooler air is. That's where the rain is, right? Clouds keep it cooler for this time of year, but the standout is well to the north in Montana. And that's not a misprint, folks. This is a strong cold front for this time of year. Temps are going to be in the 90s actually in Montana today, but they drop like a rock, a good 30-degree drop tomorrow. They're going to be hard pressed to get out of the 50s up there in Montana and wake up in the 40s as we head into Wednesday morning. So this is a stronger cold front. Unfortunately, it won't dive too far south, but underneath that cold front, it's not going to feel like summer any stretch of the imagination, but it is going to bring some more rain showers for them. So as well as a strong cold front that's going to be able to overturn the atmosphere, do expect more of a kind of a chillier rain up there into Montana, through the Dakotas, back into Minnesota. And of course, further south, they'll be dealing with yet another little mesoscale convective vortex system into the overnight hours that would likely put out another flood watch across portions of Texas and more extensive flooding overnight. And that swings northbound into North Texas and kind of wring itself out as we head into the morning and the afternoon hours tomorrow. And of course, the heavier rains are going to be alive and well across the East Coast, much of the Carolinas, and of course, where that 93L is crossing over Florida, pretty much the entire state, especially there into central and southern Florida, would likely see even more heavy rain as we head into Tuesday. But I do feel it does cross over into the Gulf on Wednesday. So we'll look at the guidance here, but nonetheless, it does remain a kind of a weaker system. But anytime you obviously get a low pressure center in the middle of the hurricane season, you always have to be concerned of what's going to happen. Of course, we got plenty of warm waters down there into the upper Gulf Coast states. So we'll be watching this closely. And let's look at some of these sea surface temperature anomalies. And yeah, these are some of the warmest temperatures you'll find really anywhere out there, well into the upper 80s, if not approaching 90 degrees in spots. And as you come closer into Louisiana off the Mississippi coast, those temperatures are in fact right around 90, 91 degrees right now. Really untapped waters. They really haven't seen a storm this season. So we'll be watching this one closely. But the standout is the colder air that's going to be coming in on Wednesday. Look at the morning lows, folks. This is not a misprint. This is nice to see when you get into the heart of the hottest time of summer and we're printing out 40-degree temperatures for lows. That's going to feel really nice up there, especially after you get in the 90s today. But further south, it swings into the 50s, back into Wyoming, through the 50s as well as in the Dakotas, and even Colorado would likely get into the action, especially in the mountain regions. And then, of course, modifying as it filters even further south than that. But it's a kind of a reinforcing shot on Thursday with more colder air and before it kind of winds itself down up there. But you got 2 days of it, realistically, 2 days of experience some really nice, pleasant, light conditions. Even 50s and up there into Nebraska is nothing to sneeze at. You'll take that all day long, especially this time of year. But we'll be watching as we head into Thursday that feature down there in the Gulf, right? So there are several things that's going to happen. First, the dominating ridge out west and much of the Four Corners regions, much of the deserts is going to be losing its grip. So it's not going to be as strong as it was. Like Phoenix hit 118. We're not anywhere that stretch of that imagination. So that's going to lose some of its grip. And what's going to happen is the ridge is going to be starting to build and move into Texas and Oklahoma. And that's probably music to your ears because you've seen plenty of rain across those regions. So a lot of folks are expecting it and look forward to some of those drier times, and even that it just doesn't deluge on a daily basis like it has. So we are going to have that ridge of high pressure that's going to be changed in the overall pattern, which would be likely an influence of what's going to happen with this 93L. So right now, the National Hurricane Center has a 30%, which is increased from yesterday, probability of this trying to form and take the next name of Dexter. So we'll be watching this, and let's look at some of the overall guidances. And they're not really terribly too bullish on this, right? Here's the overall European guidance. Just really kind of a couple members, right? It doesn't really do anything with it. This is the latest European, likely takes it into Louisiana. And then even the GFS ensembles, kind of the same deal. Not too many members even on board with this. So not really on board with trying to form this into a tropical system. One of the models that's really only the kind of the standout and obviously the outlier in this is the Icon, but it has been pretty consistent trying to print a stronger system and a more westward moving system, but it would take advantage of some of those warmer waters down there into the Gulf there, off the upper Gulf Coast, deep coast there, and into Louisiana, Mississippi area by the time we head into that Thursday afternoon. So what it's going to be fighting is a lot of shear. Notice if we kind of zoom in into Texas, into Louisiana, the green area back into Florida, up here into areas of the Florida Panhandle, that's fairly favorable, right? There's not too much shear to contend with to kind of rip this thing apart. But the further west it goes, it is going to be running into more shear. So as we move into Louisiana, we definitely start to see a lot more shear. So it's going to be hard pressed to get any further out west and what it appears, especially like into Texas. If anything, the guidance is kind of hinting that if something does get close, it's probably going to be kind of steered into Louisiana as we move forward. And that's overall kind of what are the guidances, what we're working with right now as just kind of a minimal tropical depression or even a minimal tropical storm, even if it does come to fruition. So right now it's a 93L. So we'll be, either way, it looks to be a bona fide rain producer, because that's just going to tap into all that abundance amount of moisture that's going to be still in the atmosphere. And then once it moves inland, it's going to be able to tap into that, and the Gulf is going to be open for business and swinging that inland. So yes, be concerned if it does take more of a westward track and then feel the effects of that shear and that ridge really starting to build and develop. It could bring some heavier flooding, life-threatening rains to Louisiana as we head into, say, Thursday and Friday, getting into the weekend ahead. So we'll have to watch this ultimate trap. But right now, if I had to throw a dart at it, I would likely be on high alert into Louisiana, especially as we get closer into that Thursday, Friday timeframe, watching what's to come with Dexter. But after that, it looks like the ridge really starts to take over for a good part of the central U.S., where they've been actually kind of average to below average, been fairly unusual for this time of year. But they're going to pay the price in a big way with the ridge building in. So when your normals are basically 96, 97, say in Dallas on, as we head into the middle of the month, above average would likely be triple digits, right? So, that's just expect that to come, and what that ridge of high pressure. So what's going to happen is you're going to start drying out, right? So as the ground starts to dry out, you'll start to be able to heat up. So it's probably going to be extremely humid, right? It's going to be really humid coming up in a big way, but look what happens, right? I know I've seen a lot of comments that say, hey, when's Arizona finally going to get into the mix? With the ridge building over Texas and a much of Oklahoma and the much of central plain states, that's going to shift most of the heavier rains, which would end up being in New Mexico right now, likely shifts over Arizona. So they desperately need it. They've had a couple fires happening right now, and so they desperately need that rain, and it looks to come, but it's still going to be a little bit, we're down the road. We're talking 7 to 10 days from now, but it definitely looks like a pattern shift is on the way to bring much needed rains for those areas. And if we take a look at the overall longer range severe weather outlook, obviously with the ridge starting to build over the south, you'll start to get more of that ridge rider effects, typically what you see this time of year. So definitely what's in line to come for the upper Midwest and the North and Central states is likely more severe weather as we head to after the 20th time frame. As you heat up further south, the ridge the storms have to go somewhere. They would go up and over that ridge and then kind of deluge over the upper Midwest, getting into the Ohio Valley as we head into after that July 20th time frame. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch my next update while I protect you before and after the storm.